Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast, and a very special welcome to my August birthday gals and guys and my fellow Leos. And we're just here to celebrate today because it is officially my 32nd birthday. Not actually like today when I'm recording this. We're technically recording this like a week early, but as you guys are listening to this, it is my birthday, so you're probably seeing a huge amount of fun posts and just things that I'm celebrating because I'm currently coming back from a New York trip, which I love. New York, if you guys don't know, like New York is like the city where I feel like I'm like most alive. And if you guys listened to episode 2, which was a lot about like just being and feeling fully myself, I am literally living in my feminine times 1000 when I'm in New York. Like I am so energized there. So I'm coming off of a trip and I want to do a little bit of reflection of my 30s in general, and then also the things that I feel like I've learned a lot over the last 2 years. So I know a lot of people do like 32 tips at 32 or any of that type of stuff, but I feel like you guys have shit to do today, so I don't necessarily want to keep you here for 4 hours. So I actually limited myself down to 3 tips, 2 for 32 and then 1 for things that I'm going to be focusing on for the future. And I'm going to forget what I'm talking about or ramble forever, so I'm going to have them in front of me. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of reflection heading into this next year of my life, because as much as I could probably give you guys life lessons from literally like birth infant Ashley with like blonde hair and like one random curl at the front of my head to the last like 2 years, I could basically give an entire like life lesson on things I've learned since 30. And I do also want to preface the fact that 30s, I'm not heading into this saying like your 30s are bad, because if you would have asked me at age 11 what I wanted to be, I was literally like the movie 13 going on 30. Like I wanted to be 30, flirty, and thriving. I used to write down like a vision of what I wanted to be, and it was me in a suit carrying a big planner and going to important meetings. Like that's what I told myself I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm also a librarian, but that was like a phase that I had in 5th grade, so we're just gonna skip that part. But once I moved past that, also a WNBA player, once I moved past those 2 fantasies, being a librarian or playing professional basketball, what I actually wanted to do was be in a suit and go to important meetings and carry this big ass fucking planner. And I thought that when you got to 30, I was like, there's something about 30 that's very sophisticated. You figure your shit out. You guys have probably heard this spiel, especially if you guys are in your 20s or maybe already in your 30s. You realize that you don't really head into your 30s knowing what the hell you're doing. You're just a little bit more wise in navigating the things that come your way. Like I would say most people when they get to 30 start to just kind of figure out themselves a little bit more. Your 20s, you're really in like that self-discovery era. And I went into 30s being like, my life is going to be amazing at 30. I already told you guys in the first episode when I kind of recap my life, I had just quit my job. I actually wanted to be retired from corporate America by 30. And I also wanted to kickstart my 30s by taking my friends on this like all expense paid trip, which was a fucking disaster. And pretty much since that day, launching a podcast, leaving for Vegas, unemployed and starting a business, everything has been a clusterfuck. I've had a lot of loss of friends. I've had loss of loved ones. I've had more self-doubt in my life than ever before. And it has very little to do with being 30. I think it just more has to do with the fact that I've taken my pace from like work energy and hustle culture to like, how do I actually create a life I love? And I think when you transition from focusing on one thing to really like looking at your life as like this masterpiece that like you can actually create, it's sometimes very overwhelming. And so I went ahead and I was writing down basically every single thing that I've learned over the last 32 years. Holy shit, I'm old. I'm not actually old. I need to stop saying that. But the things that I've learned over the last 32 years, and I've consolidated it really down to like the 3 things that I'm like, I live and breathe this and feel this every single day. The first tip or the first like life lesson actually is not gonna be one of the 3, but I wanna say it anyway because it's so fucking necessary. As you guys make more money and are more successful, please invest in sexy and fun pajamas. So fun fact, if you guys are watching the video of these are pajamas. They're by like the company Sleeper. I was literally just talking to my best friend Lauren and I was like, oh my gosh, I love these pajamas, like my fucking $400 pajamas. And she's like, how many of these do you own? I was like, at least 10, probably 15. So yes, I've spent like $8,000 on pajamas in my life, literally over the last 2 years. best investments ever. When you are at home a lot and you're like investing in a nice home or you work from home or whatever, there is nothing that is going to make you feel more powerful than like waking up. And I don't sleep in these obviously because yes, they're pajamas, but I don't actually sleep in my pajamas. I sleep in like sweatpants. But waking up from your slumber in sweatpants and then putting on a sexy pair of pajamas, I love these things. They are so sophisticated. I think I'm gonna get the blue, even though I wasn't necessarily into the blue. But number one thing that I will tell you, invest in pajamas that make you feel sophisticated. I probably actually am gonna make a theme on this podcast. Probably some episodes I'm gonna be eating bread or pasta. And then in the other episodes, I'm going to be wearing pajamas. Or some episodes, I might just give you guys a fucking treat and eat bread while wearing pajamas. That sounds like a great idea. But anyway, that's the first thing I will say is something that has changed my life is just investing in good pajamas. It makes you feel so good. And also, this looks so good with a pair of heels or a pair of loafers. I could wear this out to brunch and you bitches would never know that it's pajamas. So anyway, best tip I can give you, utilize the clothes in your closet better by investing in nice pajamas. Okay, let's talk about the real lessons because even though that's a lesson, I don't think that's necessarily going to be a huge takeaway from everyone. Although honestly, watch that be like the number one thing people say from this episode is they're gonna invest in nice pajamas. But anyway, these are some of the things that I've really realized over the last couple years has been like key things in my life. Number one, actually, I think is a lesson that I need to remind myself a lot, but it's basically being okay with the unknown. Every aspect of my life that is a key component of my life now, my business, the friends I have, how I spend my time, what's a priority to me, what's not a priority to me, every one of those things was not really in the plan. I am a very big vision board person every single year for my birthday. So I'm actually doing it this week, which I'm really excited about. I wanted to come back from New York, have the energy of New York kind of spewing inside of me as I made it. But I actually do my goals from like year to year for age. A lot of people do their goals at the beginning of the year, but honestly, who the fuck cares about January? Like no one important besides half of my best friends are born in January. So we don't really give a shit about January, okay? Like that is just, it doesn't make any sense to do your goals at the beginning of the year. Like your new year is your birthday. So for me, I really like being able to like write down goals for my birthday for like my next year of life. I find that really helpful. So I do all my goals and I do redo my vision board for like the next year and also like my 5 years. I do that at my birthday. And one of the things that I realized is as I've been doing this year over year, I usually look at my vision board and about half of it comes true, which is fucking amazing. Like, thank you, manifestation gods up there. But the other half of it, I realize I don't really give a shit about anymore. And I think it's because a lot of the times when we're looking at our life, we think of like accomplishments or like big achievements as like the things we really want. And sometimes it's more like a state of being. And I think when I was younger, a lot of my achievements were like get promoted at X sales company to this role and like sell $1 million. And it was a lot of like very specific things. And I'm not saying that that's not great, but I also think that the things that have made me the happiest in my life have been a lot more about like my personal development. So when I started vision boards, again, I was very like achievement focused. And now I'm a lot more like, how do I feel about my life focused? So a little bit more is about my habits. I've been very focused on like speaking engagements, again, not from an achievement standpoint, but because 10 years ago, now 15 years ago, I guess, when I was going to college, I almost didn't go to my college because public speaking was a required class and I was afraid of public speaking. Now, here I am recording on a podcast, probably stumbling over my words, as I just did, a lot. And if you guys have ever seen me speak, I stumble over my words. And when I am coaching, I get kind of anxious and I get kind of nervous. But for the most part, like I can fucking speak, okay? I'm standing here, I'm doing it. I have people in the room watching me as I record this and like we're hanging in there, okay? Like I'm not afraid, but it definitely was a skill set that I had to learn. Sales used to be very intimidating to me. I really struggled with cold calling and navigating conversations. It's something that I learned. So I've really been focusing more on my development as milestones for me versus like achievements as milestones. And I think that that's been very healthy. But going back to the point of like being okay with the unknown, I also want you to be okay with the fact that like sometimes the path that is meant for you is not necessarily what you put down on paper. So when I started my first business, which was financial coaching, which by the way, was so much fun. I loved it. I still love talking about money. That was not the bigger path. That was a stepping stone to the bigger path. So many people will come to me and be like, my dream is to open a restaurant or my dream is to do this really big ass fucking thing. And I'm like, okay, great. Where are you going to get like the $1 million of capital you need for that? And they're like, well, I'm just going to save for the next 10 years. And I'm like, what if you use your gifts now to create stepping stones to get there quicker? So for me, her 7-figure story was a milestone kind of path creator for By the Blazer, which is actually like my dream business. It's actually when I went back and I envisioned myself having these important meetings in a fucking pinstriped suit, walking around and talking with important people. I kind of envisioned myself like consulting, like people cared about my opinion and my vision, and I was giving, direction to big businesses. Like that was actually my dream. I just didn't really realize it until I started doing it. And this podcast is also part of my dream. I didn't think I really realized it, and I didn't realize it would come from a podcast, but one of my big visions was to put myself in situations where I could facilitate really intentional conversations. A dream that I used to have when I was really young. I'd get asked, because as a woman, you get asked like 2 things when you want to get married and when you want to have kids. Nothing else in your life is important besides those 2 things, apparently. So this starts happening to women, for any of the men listening, at like a very young age, like almost an uncomfortably young age. And I remember being like 12 or 13 or 14, and I was like a Gilmore Girl fanatic. So I was thinking like, how young can I have a child to like be basically her Rory to my Lorelai? And a lot of people would ask me about having kids. And after I got through the phase of wanting to be like a single parent and live in a Stars Hollow and like walk around drinking enormous amounts of coffee, I realized that I didn't think that kids was in my pathway. However, when I was asked about having kids, one of the visions I always had was fostering. And I really wanted to foster like 3 or 4 girls, and I wanted to be really, really rich so I could afford to do this. And I wanted to like work with women, or basically like adopt or foster at like the middle school level. A lot of people always thought like of having babies or working with babies. And I always envisioned middle schoolers, because I was like, middle schoolers are really understood and they just need people to like get them and understand them. And I wanted to be that person. I wanted to create spaces where people could come in and feel seen and feel heard. And even though I'm not that rich yet and I'm not fostering or doing any of that, that's actually what I do in my business. And that's actually the whole point of this podcast, is to create spaces where people can feel seen and feel heard and feel safe. And so it's crazy, because if I would have created this path of like, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way, I wouldn't have really gotten here. And so looking at my life, being afraid of the unknown isn't about not having a game plan or not having goals or not having aspirations. It's about being okay with the fact that like sometimes what you are envisioning for yourself isn't even touching what's actually could happen to you if you just trusted the process. I think that's kind of a 2-point component here, is be okay with the unknown and also trust the process. My life is nothing like I thought it would be. First of all, I live in fucking St. Louis, and no offense to anyone living in St. Louis, but like my coat collection in St. Louis just don't really work hand in hand. Okay, we're gonna have to change that at some point. And I have this big ass house, and I'm friends with a lot of the same people that I've been friends with for a long time. And also people that I thought were gonna be my ride or dies, I don't talk to anymore. And, I run a company, and I have a podcast, and I like public speaking, which used to be my biggest fear. And so many things have been so different than I planned. And so one of the things that I am trusting now in life is, my whole philosophy is taking a step and praying and hoping that the path appears. I sometimes say it in coaching and business coaching, like jump off the cliff and hope that wings appear. So many of us feel like we have to have a plan before we execute. And actually, as you execute, usually the plan starts to create itself. And again, this is the same with like launching a business. This is the same with anything else in life. You kind of have to trust that the direction you're going is the right direction. And a lot of the times what people make the mistake of, if you're watching this from a visual standpoint, I always like use my hands to explain stuff. But most of the time what I see people make the mistake of is they're here and they want to get here. They actually create the whole path and then start walking down it. Whereas my philosophy a lot with business and life is take one step, evaluate, and then create the path. So a lot of times people create this path to here and it creates stuck, and then they have to recreate a path and keep going. Whereas if you take one step at a time, you're probably gonna get 50 times ahead, and you're actually gonna create the path that you love versus going down the wrong path and then completely pivoting. You probably hear a lot in business, I wanna burn my business to the ground, or I just wanna like completely start over, or I'm totally heading in the wrong direction. It's because people built an entire path and then tried to walk down it. What if you actually create the path as you walk down it? It's gonna be a lot stronger path, and you're gonna be a lot more confident about the things that you did prior and also the steps ahead of you. So that's kind of one of the things that I have been doing, is trusting that I'm creating the path as I go, and I'm going to be a lot smarter and a lot happier because of it. So that would be definitely lesson number one, and things that I want you guys to take ahead or take with you, whether you're older than me, younger than me, whatever. I think that that's something that I've really started to embrace. And it's something I've done very well in the last 2 years, but you can like feel the heaviness as I say this. It's something that I'm also going to try to prioritize more in the future. The next thing has been kind of I don't want to say a headache or a pain point for me, but I wrote this down and I actually kind of like started to cry, but I wrote down the words, friends aren't always forever. And if you guys know me, and hopefully you guys can get this from the podcast, also if you came to my live event last year, my entire speech around wealth was about my friends. My friends have always been like a self-elected family to me. I care very deeply for them. They're like the heart and soul of everything I do. And losing friends is very hard, but it's also kind of part of life. And I think when I was getting into like my 20s and friendship was really hard because I was working, my friends were working, we weren't all living in the same city. You know, in college, like your entire circle can literally be like 4 steps away from you at all times. Like they're down the street, or they're like in the class next to you, or they're like literally in the same fucking dorm room as you. Like they're right there. They kind of foster this like unrealistic expectation that like everything you need in life, your dorm, your food, your like, you know, RA for guidance, your sorority, like literally everything is like right there. It's literally like as you walk into a fucking buffet, your entire option list is there. That is not what life is. In life, you have to really curate that buffet and make things more available to you, make things more of a priority to you. And in my 20s, when things were really heavy and hard, I kind of assumed that if I lost friends, it was because of like something I did. And as I've gotten older, I realized that like friendships just come and go because that's just called life. And there's a couple different reasons it happens. Sometimes it's just you and that person don't align anymore. There's people in my life that we're just different. It doesn't mean that my path is right and theirs is wrong. It doesn't mean that, you know, I'm wrong and they're right. We just are different. And then there's people who are just not going to prioritize you. And that is something that was always really hard to me because I'm in sales, right? I can convince anyone of anything. I can literally sell fucking ice to Eskimos. Like that is a gift of mine. So in my friendships growing up, I actually would like literally shake people down to stay in their life. I had one friend who I'll probably make an entire episode about in the future, who I like joined a gym so I could spend time with her. And I invited her to concerts and spent money on shit that she wanted to do just so I can like prioritize her. And I got none of that in return. And that was my way of basically being like, I'm going to force you to like stay in my circle. When I was in like relationships or I had boyfriends, if they would start to kind of pull away, I like forced myself to be everywhere because I was like, you can't leave me. Like I'm going to like put you in this space where like you can't leave. It was like very, very overwhelming for me to like prioritize people in this way where I like facilitated our friendship. I wasn't just in it. And it probably took me until probably in the last year or two where I realized that it is okay to let go of those people. Same with like clients. I actually am very open now to like letting go of clients if it doesn't work out, because the moment that I let go of something bad, the best thing in the world comes up. Every time I've said no to like a client or a payment plan thing that they want, or just some type of modification that they really want, every time I've done that, my dream client I sign the next day, or my dream friend I like, you know, meet that week. We so much feel like friendships leaving us or not prioritizing us is like a reflection of us, when usually it's just like the universe's path of saying like, hey, you're meant for something better. Like you need space in your life or space in your world for something better. And as I'm like heading into the kind of this new phase, again, you guys can hopefully maybe tell, especially if you know me, how much my life has changed in the last 2 years. I went from buying my friendship at 30 or trying to buy my friendships by being like, I'm going to take them on trips, I'm going to pay for every meal, I'm going to do whatever, to now like the people that are in my life that are just meant to be there, I don't have to impress them, I don't have to do anything, I can be my most like natural self around them. And anyone where that is not the case, I just know that that's probably not going to be like a super long-term thing. There are people that are meant to be in your life for different stages. There are seasons of life where people's relationship with you is necessary and beneficial for both people. And sometimes when you get out of different seasons, it's okay to say, you know what, like this isn't a thing anymore. In the last 2 years, I've lost several friends, and I really had to like sit with that a little bit because, again, I'm one of those people who I'm like, I'll do anything to make something work. Like, that's always been my personality. And I had to realize that there was actually nothing I could do to make it work anymore. In fact, trying to make it work took up space to like let other people in, to let other relationships in. And I think it's okay to say, like, if things aren't working, it's not because there's an issue. Sometimes it's just like what's meant to be. And so that has been probably one of the heaviest lessons that I've had to learn in the last like 2 years is friendships do come and go. Also, don't sacrifice everything to put like a square peg in a round hole. There's people I look back in my life and I'm like, if I would have just fucking let that go and moved on, I would have found like the perfect fit. And if you're in a state right now where you don't feel like you have really great friends, create the spaces for them. I mentioned creating bachelor nights, and I had all these events and stuff at my house. Some of my best friends to this day walked into my house as a friend of a friend, and we connected like crazy. Like, my best friend Abigail literally walked in and she's like, hi, I'm Abigail. And I think I was talking about like, you know, my friend's nipple or something. Like, we were on this like weird conversation, and she just walks in and all of a sudden like we're getting coffee every single week. Like, that came out of nowhere, but it came from the fact that I created the room. We would have never met if she didn't come into my house to be, you know, to sit in a bachelor night as a friend of a friend who was already invited. And, you know, I've met friends from mentorship programs I've been in. Some of the best things I've gotten from investing in business mentors, which at this point, 2 years in, I've probably spent about $180,000 on business mentorship programs. I know that's very intimidating to you, but I've also made that back times 10, has been the friendships I've created, like women that I can call up when things get heavy and just talk to about. So know that like ebbs and flows of your life also will equal ebbs and flows of friendships. And so don't take it personally if it doesn't work out. Also be okay with the fact that sometimes we gotta like get rid of like the dead weight in order to make room for the things that we really want. And I think that that's just part of life. And even though I'm praying to God that the people that are currently in my life will always be there, I also know that that's just like not going to be the case. So I just have to keep trusting my gut with the relationships I put in my life. And I also have to be okay with the fact that sometimes I can't be the one in control of the decision for someone to walk away or not prioritize me anymore. So that one's a little bit of a heavier one, but I also think that a lot of the times we need that reminder, because the number one thing people ask me about outside of business or finance or my pajama collection, obviously all very important topics, is friendships and being okay with leaving friendships. And then the last thing that I want to share, this is actually based on a quote that I have in my Facebook, even though I don't use Facebook, but I did write this like 6 years ago and I believe it to this day. It says, $1 million ideas can come from anywhere. One of my beliefs, as I'm flicking this phone at you guys, one of my beliefs is that every single person is capable of at least $1 million idea in their lifetime. Every single person right now could build $1 million business today from their existing skills and knowledge. Every single one of you guys. Now, some of you guys will, because you have the tenacity and you're able to overlook the bullshit keeping you from doing it. And other of you guys will sit there being like, I wish I could do that. I wish I had a high paying skill. I wish I had this, because you just fucking can't see what's in front of you. Every single one of you guys has something that is worth millions of dollars. And if I can take away anything over the last couple years, I've had 3 or 4 skills that have paid me millions of dollars. My sales skills, millions of dollars. You can do that in a corporate setting, or you can do that as this entrepreneur. My marketing skills, millions of dollars. And my financial knowledge, millions of dollars. Never did I think I could start a $1 million company teaching women about investing. But the internet is very overwhelming. Investing is a very male-dominated area. And there was a lot of women who said, I just wish that someone could make this feel easy and less intimidating. And I built a $1 million company from that in 15 months. Like, so many of us want to be successful, and we actually already have all of the components of success. Like, if you were building a fucking house, if that was success, you have the fucking tool belt. You have the fucking hammer and the saw and the nails. I'm trying to think of tools because I don't obviously build anything. That's not my gift, by the way. You have every single thing that you need, but you are the one ignoring it because you're trying to, again, build that fucking pathway that doesn't even need to exist to start. My business started from me posting on TikTok and saying I'm really good at money. That's literally how my entire business started. My second business started because I basically talked about how I was growing on TikTok and how I was basically getting clients every single day from TikTok. It can actually be that easy. But when so many of you guys are trying to create that path, basically say, how do I get there? you miss the fundamental steps of growing a business. If you guys want to make $1 million in the next 15 months, you need a high ticket skill. So that could be finance, that could be home organization, just something high ticket. You need people who are willing to pay it. So you can build that community on TikTok, you can build that community on Instagram, and you basically need sales skills. You need to be able to convince people that you can create the results that they're looking for. If you have those 3 things, you could literally make $1 million in the next year. Like, it's actually that easy. And so the reason I wanted to talk to you guys about these things again, because I'm sitting here now as a 32-year-old who's had a lot of financial success, I've had a lot of business success, and I think somewhere deep inside I've also grown a lot personally, is life is always changing. You can't really predict what's happening. You just got to keep moving. And also, there's so many amazing things out there that you can have and you can achieve if you just fucking get rid of the bullshit and like focus on them and make it simple and make it easy. And as I said, now as a 32-year-old, we're now on episode 3 of a brand new podcast that I have no idea what's going to happen with. It might just be something for fun. It might just be a really great way to show off my really cute pajama collection or eat a lot of fucking carbs in the next few months. I don't know what's actually going to happen, but I think that's actually the most beautiful part of my life right now. So if you're sitting there, you don't know what's next, you're not sure how to build the business, you're not sure, if you should leave the job or if you should abandon the boyfriend, by the way, if you're even questioning it, just know it's all going to be okay. And like, that's just kind of part of life. And probably the best things about your life, you haven't even gotten there yet. You haven't even achieved it yet. And I'm hoping that this year brings a lot of those things, but I'm also okay with the fact that this might just be a stepping stone in a lot bigger picture and a lot bigger vision for my life than I can even predict for myself.